The podcast you are about to listen to contains at least one of the following: strong language, disturbing topics, abusive opinions, generally things that aren't appropriate for little kids or overly sensitive people. So, if any of that stuff's going to get your nose out of joint, this is your chance to turn it off. Welcome to I Had to Say It, the podcast where I talk about things that I feel need talking about, and sometimes they're not getting the attention they deserve. And your feelings, they're not under consideration. Welcome to another episode of I Had to Say It. Today we are going to talk about just sort of the situation in the world in general and the United States in specific. Apologies for my non-U.S. listeners. This is probably mostly going to be an episode of me bitching about stuff that is relevant to those of us that live in the United States, although we like to think the rest of the world is hanging baited on all of our shit, but let's be honest, it's really not the case. At least not as much as it used to be. And frankly, I don't really blame the rest of the world for getting sick of our shit. We haven't done anything to make ourselves worthy of the position of being leaders on this planet lately. I mean, we can barely handle our own shit. We shouldn't be trying to handle any of the rest of the world's affairs. And unfortunately, as the people that are at the reins of this country have recently demonstrated, we're not even really doing very good in extricating ourselves from the affairs of the rest of the world. But I'm not necessarily going to get on that particular stage to harp. I want to speak more about what we, the general population, where we're fucking up. And there's really no way to say it other than the fact that we are fucking up. But I'll get to that in a minute. A couple of, maintenance things, upkeep things I just wanted to mention before I get too into it and get myself sidetracked and forget. First off, I've done some updates to the website. Nothing major, but a few little changes. If you want to go check it out, that'd be great. Lord knows I could use a little traffic to that thing to justify the fact that I keep paying to have it. Secondly, there is a TeePublic merch site now set up. I still have the Teespring store too. Some different stuff on that one than there is on the TeePublic one, but the TeePublic one also has stuff connected to other podcasts that I like, and I like their merch, so I put some stuff on my page that'll link to them if you want to go check them out. Maybe find a new podcast that you might want to listen to, or, if you do listen to some of the shows I've recommended, you can find links to their merch on that page now. And there's also some stuff up there that is only on that page. Just a couple new designs. Going to be setting up I'm ordering some new stickers, so when those come in, I will let everybody know I'll say something on here or post something on social media or whatever. And if you want some, just let me know and I'll get those in the mail. So basically, I just want to talk about the state of the world today and the way things are going, and the fact that the whole COVID thing that's going on has become such a nightmare. And what started out as a 15-day lockdown flattened the curve. There's a lot of jokes out there going around about how the hardest part about 15 days to flatten the curve is the first 18 months. But the simple fact of the matter is we're coming up on 2 years of this shit. And rather than getting back to a normal, quote-unquote, normal life, we're being told now we have to accept this as the new normal. And as much as I have always tried to say I don't want to sound like the conspiracy type, at what point does something stop being a conspiracy and start being the truth or acknowledged as the truth? And we are being conditioned to, anytime somebody says something that doesn't fit the mainstream media, they're so quick to be called a conspiracy theorist at this point. They're so quick to have people trying to ostracize them and tell them they're nuts. But there is a certain degree of groundswell gaining behind this, and realistically, I hate to be one of the I told you so types, because I think I told you so is fucking obnoxious as a general rule. And I am not alone in being one of those people who, a year and a half ago when all this shit started, people were saying, okay, well, we got to do this and we got to do that. I was real quick to say that I didn't believe once the powers that be had this control, they were ever going to relinquish it. And by and wide, it's looking like that's exactly what's going on. And a lot of people are getting fed up with it. A lot of people that at one point were sitting there saying, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but are all of a sudden finding themselves in the position of going, fuck, I was right. Now, recently, the jelly-filled fuck of a governor of the state I live in is talking about, oh, I'm signing into order these mandates and that mandates. And it's a prime example of a lot of these politicians have completely overstepped their bounds of what authority they actually fucking have. And even when they did have the authority, it was granted to them under an Emergency Powers Act or a declaration of a state of emergency. After 18 fucking months, it's no longer an emergency. It's either the new normal or you're full of shit. One or the other. And the problem is, in this country, we have forgotten that the governors and and I'm not saying governors as in the position at this point, I'm saying the governors as in the people who govern the population, only do that job with the consent of the governed. And they are only realistically supposed to have so much power. And by and wide, the general population has forgotten that fact. They have forgotten the fact that these people are supposed to be public servants. They're supposed to be doing the job to support and serve the public. It's in the fucking job title. And this is not accidental. It's not a coincidence that the general population has forgotten that fact. And the people who bring it up, the people who try and point out the fact that these assholes that are running the show now have deliberately coached us into believing they have some inherent right to tell us what to do. And anybody who says that is labeled as extremist or dangerous by the people that are in control, because realistically, that mindset is dangerous to them. It threatens their power. It jeopardizes the position they have spent and lied and cheated and stole whatever they had to do to get in that position of power. And they are not going to give it up willingly at this point. That should be painfully obvious. I live in the land where election fraud has been a joke about this state since before I was old enough to vote. And it's the simple fact of the matter is, it's not inaccurate. There's no reason we shouldn't be able to get valid, accurate voting tallies, but we don't. And we get election results where the number of votes counted are more than their living residents in a county. It's fucking ridiculous. And yet we're just kicking along like we have to accept this, and it has to be the case. And like I said, well, I'm not the one that's sitting there going, well, we got to burn it all down. There are a lot of people out there, and there is a groundswelling of support for that. And the powers that be, it's one of those, if you don't remember history, you're doomed to repeat it situations. These assholes seem to think that by clamping down and adding more restrictions and adding more rules and regulations and trying to ostracize and force down these people that are getting upset with this shit, that's somehow going to control things. And it's really not. By marginalizing those people, by fueling that thing, and by clamping down on the regular people that are getting frustrated with that shit, they are building the groundswell that's going to lead to shit happening. I honestly believe that. A year ago, I said these lockdowns are not going to stop. There's going to be a round two. They're going to find another reason to keep whatever emergency powers they think they deserve. They're not going to give them back. And like I said, I hate to say I told you so, but for fuck's sakes, I wasn't the only one saying it. I'm still not the only one saying it. It's going to get worse before it gets better, if it gets better. I really hope it does. I don't want to see shit go sideways, but a year ago I said this second lockdown and mandates and vaccine passports were all going to be a thing. What I'm saying now is we're sitting on a fucking powder keg, and there's going to be pushback. It's going to happen. It's going to come. They were perfectly fine letting riots happen last year, and I really don't see them doing anything to try and suppress stuff like that happening, as long as it's just us attacking us, as long as it's the common people destroying each other, and small businesses getting trashed, and independent operations being shut down. They've already killed so many small businesses with their restrictions and their lockdowns and all the other shit, because the super chains are never going to flounder to the point of going out of business. You may lose a store here and there, but the business itself is going to keep going, because that's what the fucking parasitic assholes in office are feeding off of. You can go, during the entire lockdown, the entire pandemic, if you needed to get out of the house for a little while, you could always go to fucking Walmart. Whether it was through virtue signaling or whatever bullshit where they justified these things going on. The simple fact of the matter is there was a lot of destruction and nobody was held accountable for it, and it's going to get worse. If they were willing to allow that shit to happen to further their own agendas then, and people to die and businesses to be destroyed, and I'm just flat out calling it, it's going to be fucking worse. They're going to keep pushing, and they are going to try and justify every extra step they take, every extra piece of power they seize onto, and they're going to reinforce the restrictions, all the things that people are already bristling against, people that are sick of having to stay at home, people that want to be able to go out and go to a restaurant and get something to eat, people that want to get back to having a life. And they're going to keep saying, you have to accept the control, you have to accept what we're doing. And if you question it, you're a conspiracy theorist. You're nuts. You're insane. You're one of the tinfoil hat brigade. There's a million things that they're going to say to try and justify this extra control they're exerting over our lives. There are people that are taking it to the extremes where they're comparing it to Nazi Germany and comparing it to the Holocaust and all this other shit. And honestly, I think that's a little bit of an extreme comparison at this point. But yes, saying you need to have travel papers to go somewhere is not what this country is supposed to be about. And saying that people have to give up their freedoms for your safety and your security is not what we're supposed to believe in. It's not how this country is supposed to work. And the people who are getting behind this the most don't seem to realize that they don't fucking benefit from it. And there's always going to be an excuse, as long as we keep doing this shit, about how these things have to be done for your safety. They have to be done for your security. They're going to keep capitalizing on fear to keep you under thumb. There's always going to be another reason why they have to keep the control. There's going to be another reason why they should be making your decisions for you. They do not have your best interests at heart. They're going to get corporate America to co-sign it, because why not? The two are basically indistinguishable at this point. They are going to enforce it with military rule, because at some point we are going to be having more Ruby Ridge incidents and things like that, where people are going to get fed up with the shit, and they're going to do what this country was founded on and take shit into their own hands. And the government is going to respond with military action within the borders of our own country. They're going to justify it, because they're going to say these people were a threat, these people were domestic terrorists. They're going to come up with some angle to spin it on where they're going to justify their behavior, because they are protecting their power base, they are protecting the people that bought and sold them, and they are going to do what they have to do to maintain their positions. And as long as the bulk of the population is willing to keep saying, well, this is for our own good, as long as people are willing to accept having opinions forced down their throat, we are isolated from each other because of mandates and stay-at-home orders and all this other bullshit. If you look back at history, this is like textbook manipulation tactics. If this was a relationship, this would be considered abusive as fuck. We're being gaslit, we're being controlled, we're being kept away from our friends and family. This is domestic abuse writ large. It's fucking ridiculous. The overreach has gotten so ridiculous, it's gotten to the point where, let's say, for example, I'm accessing something on an internet server and I'm streaming some video from my internet carrier. At one point, it was slightly more bearable to me because I was paying premium service fees to avoid things like ads and interruptions and political messages from candidates I don't agree with and people I don't think deserve the fucking job they have, and I think they're abusing their power and they're money-grubbing whores, and I can't stand them. Now, I have pretty much completely stopped using fucking YouTube because it's gotten to the point where not only are they inserting political ads that support an agenda I don't agree with, but they're making them unskippable. You have to watch this shit. It's not, well, play 10 seconds of it and then skip ad like 90% of the other ads on there are. Even though they've made all the bullshit sponsored ads unskippable now, too. It just really burns my ass that I have to see agenda I don't agree with being crammed down my throat in this day and age. And I understand that, that's their prerogative, and it's my prerogative not to use their fucking service, which I have decided to no longer do, because fuck you and that jelly-filled fuck muppet from Springfield. But it's a sign of the times. It's not just happening there. The media definitely pushes an agenda. The way stuff is covered is no longer actual coverage. It's always about the spin. And we as people are eating it up, and a lot of people are swallowing it. And the ones that aren't swallowing it are being labeled and ostracized by the ones who are. The ones who are, as long as the rhetoric fits what they think is what they want, I mean, the actions don't even match up with the promises, but nobody holds that accountable. No, and honestly, I think by and wide, the vast majority of the people who do realize what a major overstep of authority these politicians are doing right now don't really give a shit because they feel like it's their team. Not necessarily that it's what's best for them or it's what they want, but it's the side they chose. It's the team whose colors they decided to fly. It's the hill they chose to die on. And it's fucking sad. Nobody is actually taking these people to task. They pick the party. They say, these are my people. This is the side I'm going to do it. And literally anybody that has a platform and tries to use it and speak out against that is automatically, they're crazy. They're this, they're that. Somebody I literally thought I would never have any kind of identification with, when fucking Nicki Minaj of all people, I don't care for her. I didn't care for her for years. I got a lot more respect for her all of a sudden because she's flat out said something that was true. She said something that the left didn't agree with, and they started coming for her and trying to call her crazy because she had the nerve to question something. Do I think her cousin's friend has gigantic testicles from getting a vaccination? Everybody's got a cousin who's got a friend who's got something stupid that happened to him. I don't know how much stock I put in that. But she had a very valid point. She's being called to task for her choices and statements she's made about people she wants to support and people she believes in. But since they're not fitting you have to fit this, and it goes right back to that fucking 80-year-old cracker motherfucker that's in office that has done more to damage the livelihood of black people in America than anybody else that immediately springs to mind. And people say, oh, well, that was a different time. That was this, that was that. The motherfucker wrote one of the most stringent and invasive crime bills ever to be passed. And this was before he was a doddering, senile fuck. That was when he was in full possession of his faculties. And then this guy has the audacity and the fucking balls to say, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. Who the fuck are you to tell somebody who they are if they don't agree with you? And the entire left jumps behind that shit. Nobody called them out for being an ignorant racist fuck. They were like, oh yeah, no, black people have to vote Democrat. No, they fucking don't. It's just ridiculous. The things they will do to just... They're not even trying to hide it anymore. I mean, the disrespect and the contempt they have for the people they're supposed to be serving. They're not supposed to be our lords. They're not supposed to be our rulers. They're supposed to be fucking servants of the people. And we're going to take a quick little break here, and we'll come back and I will carry on. Today's episode is brought to you by DB. DB is a Scandinavian brand that makes backpacks and bags to help people on the move stay ready for anything. From the streets to the peaks, DB's gear is travel tested by some of the world's best athletes, adventurers, and creators. Over the past decade, DB has designed and developed, released and refined the best bags in the market. With DB's patented hookup system, you're able to attach smaller products to your backpack, roller, or tote. Now, we all know traveling today isn't like it was 20 years ago. You don't just walk up to the ticket check-in and hand them your bag and say, no one else was in possession of my bags. Now you have to go through a whole ordeal. Having the right bag makes things so much simpler. Knowing all your stuff is together and easy to control makes your commute that much easier. Whether you're on a plane or a bus, having the right bag can be the difference between having a huge headache and just having as enjoyable of a trip as you can. So, why not get the right bag? We're teaming up with DB to exclusively offer our listeners 10% off your next purchase by using the code POD10 or by going to the link in the show notes. DB, it's time to move on. Time to get going. And we're back. People are giving the different seats of authority way too much fucking control. The checks and balances system is being shot in the ass. The president, the governors, they are not supposed to be able to rule through mandates. They're not supposed to be able to declare an emergency and then maintain emergency powers for 18 fucking months. This is an abuse of power, and unfortunately, they're right when they think people are either too stupid or too apathetic to do anything about it. And on a macro scale, it's embarrassing. The entire world looks at this country and just sees what a shit show it is. On a more regional scale, like I said, our governor in the state I'm in, the politics in this state are fucking horrendous. The taxes are ridiculous. They are driving people out of the state. This is one of the few states in the country that have shown a net loss in population over the year. It's ridiculous. People are leaving in fucking droves. And instead of saying, oh, hey, maybe we're fucking up, they're doubling down on all this bullshit. They're making taxes where the cost of living is unbearable. They don't really provide shit for public services. The public services they do provide are pathetic. The highway construction is a joke. You can't get anywhere when the weather's halfway decent because the roads are all fucking closed. And when the weather's not halfway decent, you can't get anywhere because of the fucking weather. It's absolutely ridiculous, and we're paying through the nose. We have some of the worst taxes in the country. I mean, I believe, it's been a while since I've checked, but out of the entire country, we're definitely in the bottom 10 for quality as far as, I think we're paying, or the top 10 for highest tax rate, however you want to look at it. Either way, it's not fucking good. And then if you really want to look at things as far as terms of media collusion with government officials, you take a look at a state like Illinois and you say, well, I heard, the quality of life there was good, or this was good, or that was good. First off, yeah, a lot of the quality of life is good when you get away from the big cities. The big cities here, which are the hardcore holdouts for all the political parties. First off, a little reminder, as much as I love a lot of things about Chicago, you are not the fucking state. You are not the capital of Illinois. You are a small portion, a population-dense small portion. The vast majority of the rest of the state hates your fucking guts. Just putting that out there because, like I said, there's a lot of good things about the city. There's a lot of good people in the city. There's a lot of great things to do in the city. There's a lot of experiences to be had. There is culture to dive into. There is also a lot of self-righteous fucking pricks that think everybody else in the state wants them making their decisions for them, and it's really not the case. The cops are treated like shit there. The politicians don't have the backs of the people that are supposed to be taking care of things and keeping things as ordered society. They would rather condescend to the criminals and allow them all the leeway. They're hamstringing their police force. They have no real leadership. The mayor of the town is a virtue-signaling puppet of the state. Somebody needs to say that bitch's name 3 times and see if she gets sucked back into a board game because I'm so fed up with her shit. And beyond that, again, we have such a corrupt structure, but if you look at media reports and the way things are prosecuted, Illinois is actually considered one of the least corrupt states in the country. Now, this is a state that, in recent memory, has had 2 governors in federal prison on corruption charges. The problem is, it's a per capita thing. When they look at, this state is barely corrupt at all. No, it's extremely corrupt because the corruption is not actually being prosecuted. Because that statistic is based on corruption convictions per capita. Now, so if you want to look at that data, realistically, the better states in terms of that piece of data are the states with the highest corruption ratings because they're actually arresting and prosecuting these fucks instead of letting them keep their jobs for 40 fucking years. And realistically, when it's a running joke on a national level, when Saturday Night Live was making jokes about corruption in Chicago politics when I was a fucking child, when Illinois was a punchline in multiple television shows, talking about governors going to prison, talking about election fraud, talking about dead motherfuckers voting, talking about my grandma voted in the last election, which is kind of irritating because she's been dead since 2004. These are not things I'm saying. These are things that have been said on national media things when they're making jokes. So tell me, how is this the least corrupt state just because they have the least convictions? It's the other way around. It's the most corrupt state because the corruption is allowed to happen. There's no prosecution. The only way you get prosecuted in Illinois for being corrupt is if you're corrupt for the wrong party. That's it. There is rampant abuse of power. There is people using their political positions for all kinds of shit, and it's a widespread, it's one of those open secrets. Everybody knows it's happening. Everybody feels like we can't do anything about it, and realistically, it's gotten to the point where it really is kind of hard to get anything done about it. You start talking about how you see these things, and you're either a troublemaker or you're crazy or both. And this is the mindset that is, we as a population, we wind up with an educational system that is as much about indoctrination as is it about education. It doesn't we've gotten away from teaching people how to think and instead focus on teaching people what to think. Standardized testing is a horrible fucking idea because it does not meter any kind of capability when it comes to thinking. It shows you were taught how to memorize the expected answers. That is literally it. It doesn't enhance your cognitive abilities to be able to pass a standardized fucking test. It does not make you smarter because you got a higher test score on a standardized fucking test. And the testing itself is completely biased, and that's a whole nother conversation for another day. Talking about how there is... It goes back into the whole institutional racism. It's true, because the way some of that information is coached is completely inapplicable to the way some people are raised based on their culture and their society. It's not fair, it's not right, it's not just, but it's the fucking truth. And so people are saying, oh, Aaron, well, you're opposed to this. Yes, I'm fucking opposed to it. I would be all for public education, and I would be all behind if it was an actual educational standard. There's a reason that the elite don't send their fucking kids to public school. It's not for issues of safety or issues of concern. It's because the things that are taught in public school are not taught to people who are supposed to be the elite. It's not the stuff that's taught to the people that are supposed to be running things. It's not the stuff that's taught to people that are supposed to be independent and capable of thought. They teach you how to go to a place for 8 hours a day and basically punch a clock. Do as you're told, sit down, shut up, be a good little worker, be a little good producer. Be useful to the masters. It's institutionalized control is all it is. And then you have places like the wonderful state I live in, where repeatedly they're talking about education this and education that as a justification for the tax rates in this state. They take tons of extra money for education. You know why they need so much money for the Board of Education, but they still have such a terrible fucking program in place? Because you have people that are double and triple dipping on fucking pensions out of the different divisions of the Illinois Board of Education. It's absolutely horribly fucking corrupt. And the newspaper, when I was younger, actually would do articles and exposés about this shit. You don't bring that up anymore. Now you're anti-government and you're a conspiracy nut. If you happen to mention the fact that there are motherfuckers drawing hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in pension out of the education department, multiple pensions to the same people. That's not how a fucking pension is supposed to work. You're not supposed to have double and triple dips on government pensions. You're supposed to get one check. That's fucking it. I'm not even adverse to you get the biggest of the three different, say you had three different positions over the course of 60 years, and each one of them had the option of a pension. You worked up to different positions. Good for you. You get the biggest pension. You don't need all three fucking pensions, you greedy cocksuckers. And the system exists for this. And we have all these people who think they're standing up for the common man, who are defending these corrupt assholes because they look at things and say, oh, well, he's doing these things. And the fact that he's rich doesn't mean that this somehow benefits the rich people. This is for the good of the common man. You simple-minded fucks really think there's any altruism in these greedy bastards? They are not doing anything that is going to benefit you in the long run. It may have an appearance of benefiting you. It is for their own advancement. There are loopholes they can manipulate and they can take advantage of that you cannot. You're either not in a position to, or you don't have the knowledge that they exist adequately enough to exploit them. That is literally what they're counting on. People don't read the bills. They read fucking blurbs on social media, and that's what passes for research in the common person's mind because they looked up a video or they looked up an article and they read it or they skimmed it and somehow think they're fucking subject matter experts on everything. And this shit is encouraged. This shit is requested and required by these rotten, corrupt motherfuckers. And like I said, at this point, the media is finally hopped right in bed with them. There was a time where reporters would call out politicians for being corrupt motherfuckers. Now, if you call out a corruption case or you're a whistleblower, the reporters will turn you over. There used to be a time when people would protect sources. Now, if you want to protect a source, you have to do something completely anonymously. And when you do it completely anonymously, it will have so many holes punched in it because people will say, well, if it was true, why don't you want to admit who you are? Why don't you want to destroy your life and your livelihood and your well-being and jeopardize your family and your future so you can blow the whistle on it? Where's your character? Where's your morals? Where's your character and morals where you're demanding this shit instead of just saying, you know what, this might be possible. Let's actually look into it. And there's way too many people that are willing to accept and say, well, this is what the approved sources say. Social media, again, not to be beating a dead horse here. I mean, we all use it. I use it. I'm on it just as much as anybody else, trying to, spread the word about this podcast and keep up with my friends that I don't get to see anymore because we're on a fucking lockdown again. It's absolutely ridiculous. And social media has its uses, but you have to look at it with a weathered eye. You can't just knowingly accept everything. It's like all this bullshit with fact checkers. Oh, well, our fact checkers determine this. No, your fact checkers determine that something fits the narrative that best suits your interests. What a fucking shock that is. And my new favorite one is when something is flagged as missing context or partially true. Or, partially false. I don't think they say partially true. I don't know. I don't pay much attention. I just click on the X every time a fact checker box pops up. Well, missing context. Well, motherfucker, that means the statement itself is true, but you're trying to say it means something it doesn't. Or it doesn't fit your narrative. But it's true enough where you can't flat out call it a lie because there's too much information out there about it. That's literally what that means. It's saying, well, we don't want to admit this is the case, but this is the case. And people are way too quick to jump on board that, oh, well, this says that. This is a fact. Check it out. Motherfucker, you Googled something and you found something that approved your thoughts. That's all it is. That doesn't make it a fact. I've had this conversation before. The facts don't give a shit about your feelings. Facts don't care about what you think is wrong or right. Facts are facts. How you feel about them is fucking irrelevant. If it doesn't fit your narrative, that doesn't make it less true. That just makes it something you don't want to fucking hear. God forbid you do anything to question the narrative that is being put in front of us. If the approved sources say this is the truth and this is the data and these are the facts, that must be accurate. Now, I'm not somebody who's going to sit there and argue with the science and say the science is wrong. Science is evolving. There is no, this is the way it is and that's the way it's going to be permanently. And I'm willing to acknowledge that fact. But I'm also willing to say when the information that's being put forward is telling a specific story and literally anything that questions it or contradicts it is automatically flagged as false information, called a lie, without any real proof other than this is a lie because we said so. If your information is so irrefutable and so provable, you shouldn't have to silence contradictory information. If you are so determined to silence all opposing views and opinions, it really puts the veracity and the honesty of your position in question. If your position is valid and accurate, it should be able to withstand analysis and contradiction by other materials. If you are that convinced of the rightness of your stance, why are you so afraid of opposition? Why are you so afraid of alternate opinions and alternate ideas? It's just really hard to have any faith in a system that has proven time and time again that it has no problem fucking over John Q. Public in the interest of the minority of elite people. And we're getting into the around the time where I'm going to call it a day, so I guess for now, that's what I had to say.
Hey there, do you like movies, cartoons, video games, anime, and everything in between? Then we have a show for you. The For Nerds by Nerds podcast. Every week, Josh and Ben bring you all the latest and greatest in movie reviews, news, commentaries, interviews, special guests, and tons of bonus episodes. New episodes come out every Monday. We also make great nerdy content on our YouTube channel. You can find our show anywhere podcasts are found. The Four Nerds by Nerds podcast, your one stop for all your nerdy needs. Stay nerdy, my friends.
Thanks for listening to another episode of I Had to Say It. If you liked what you heard, leave a review, give us a follow, give me some feedback. And if you didn't like what you heard, leave a review, give me a follow, give me some feedback. I'll try and fix it. Check us out on all the social media platforms at I Had to Say It Podcast is the trigger for all that stuff, for the search term. And if you want, check out the website, www.ihadtosayitpodcast.com. There's links to people that have been involved with the program, things I've talked about. There are some links available for some merch that we're working on, and there are ways to contact us there as well. And thanks for listening, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.